Welcome back to another episode of Two Average Husbands. I'm your host, Jake.
I'm your host, Kyle. Welcome back, everybody. We have two special guests with us today. They're both so excited to be here. You can just tell by the look on their faces, but we're dragging them into it. If you didn't notice, Jake's in my office space that I usually film the podcast. I'm in my living room so that we could split the difference and not have repeated audio. We're in the same freaking place, and we're happy to be here. Jake, what are you drinking this week?
Jess, why don't you actually start out with what you're drinking?
What am I drinking? Good question. It's called Froth City Churros from Slow Pour Brewing. Did already crack it open, but I haven't taken a sip yet.
And I am going to start with, just in case Jess doesn't like that beer and I have to switch with her, something that she may enjoy. This is called Bees Better Have My Honey, and it is a honey wheat ale with tangerine. And it is from good. Morgan Territory Brewing.
Had both of those beers before, and Bees Better Have My Honey is better. Mo better.
Should we just switch now?
I'm going to start off with a Nitro Stout from Bellhaven Black Brewing. I don't know if that's... Yeah, Bellhaven Brewery, I guess, not Bellhaven Black. And it's a Scottish stout, so we'll see how I feel about this. But it's a Nitro, so it's going to be probably pretty strong. Somewhere around here. No, it's only 4.2%. Just kidding.
Just kidding.
Carly, what are you drinking?
I got a, what is this, 10%?
Yeah, 10%.
Sugar-free root beer.
Hell yeah.
Ooh.
Absolutely delicious. Cannot knock the drink choice at all. No,
Yours
we did not.
5.2%?
Mine's 5.2%, and Jess's is 5 on 5%. The dot.
Well, we've been gone for a while, mostly because Jake's here, and we had stuff going on leading up to this trip. I was doing school stuff. Everything was going on. So it's been a little bit. We're here. We're happy to be here. We're going to start off, I think, with the topic that I'm thinking that we're starting off with. As long as Jake nods me in assurance that that's what we're starting with. Okay, sweet. So usually we would do a surprise topic. That's how we do this podcast. But because of the guests, and we've kind of been waiting to talk about this one for a while, we are doing a topic that we already know what we're talking about, which is good. And we're both on the same page. So we're just going to kind of talk through this, have some fun with it. Not serious. So if anybody's offended by this topic, go away. We don't want to hear it. You shouldn't be. But the topic is this. Child-free by choice lifestyles. We want to talk about, for us, I won't speak on their behalf, but where we're kind of at with that and why we think that way and what are some of the things that made us not want to have children. And that's pretty much it. Just kind of go from there, kind of thoughts about that and why it's, in our opinion, it's the right move for the way that we're going to go kind of with that lifestyle.
Yeah, as a couple of dinkers on both sides here, we're both dual income, no kid families. So obviously we both know that about each other, but when did you guys know that, like, for sure you did not want kids?
That's a good question. I don't know if we had the conversation to say that definitively until probably we were maybe like a year or so into marriage, I guess, but like if
Carly's face suggests
we're not would have been that far, but it's something that, like, in passing, we were always kind of just like, that's not really something I'm interested in. But the actual, like, we are not doing this was post marriage.
Yeah. I have worked as a nurse doing pediatric home health care, and I've seen a lot of things that I wouldn't be able to handle on my own. And so it was kind of like, the families that I've worked with are amazing. I love them so much, but I wouldn't be able to do it personally. It's a lot of work. It's really hard. I'm a very emotional person. So I think for me, it was probably a year or two before we got married that I was like, I can't do that. Like, this is not an option for me.
Yeah. And I can't think of a time really where I was like, I want to have kids. There was like the societal, like, you should have kids kind of like concept where I was like, oh, maybe that's a thing that I'll do.
Right.
And then I got to the point eventually where I was just like, I don't want it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure that happened before we got married as well, but it's just not a conversation that we really had in depth. I think we knew we were on the same page, and then we finally, like, had that explicit conversation eventually. But I don't know.
I think for me, it wasn't until my job that
Yeah.
I kind of saw the real world and the chances and risks that you have just by having kids. But growing up, I was a very nurturing person. I always played with my dolls. I played house. I was always a mom in the house. And I've always been the mom friend too. So just all around, I'm a type of a mom person, but I don't want to be a mom. I'll be the mom friend forever.
Yeah.
Rent a kid, or the mom to friends.
Rent a Jake.
Yeah.
Can we back up a little bit? Jake, can you please talk about your face?
It took this long. Yes.
I asked him if he would bring it up, and he said, "I'll talk about it if somebody brings it up."
Yes.
Didn't take long. You
For anybody who is watching us live or after the fact on YouTube, yes, my face has a few marks on it that it did not have during our previous episodes. I was riding a bike home from an establishment that may or may not serve beverages of the adult variety on Thursday
Making it sound like
evening.
you're at like a strip club.
It was a bar. It was a
skirting
bar
around the-
after drinking all day at a music festival. And I was riding a bike home and I crashed the bike and my face decided that that's what I needed to land on in my drunken state. So long story short, wear your helmet when you ride a bike.
Yeah, and probably don't rent a bike when you're intoxicated is a good takeaway from that one too.
Yes, 100%.
Uber. Just use the Uber.
Yes,
We had the choice. It was actually probably more expensive to ride those bikes than it was to take an Uber.
1000%. Especially when you consider that I had to go to the urgent care.
Don't
Yeah.
take shots that your friend doesn't want to take.
True.
Yes, Kyle refused to take shots and I took them in his honor.
Did you have to take double? Were you like taking yours and his?
Yes, I was also taking my shots.
Yeah.
And that's where
Cool. What a
that's
fool.
where to be fair, I made it most of the way home on the bike with no issues. But
Yeah,
after
Most accidents happen close to home.
very fair
That's true.
point.
Example
But-
A.
To make a really solid transition into why I don't want kids, like I probably thought I wanted kids longer than anybody here. I think like it took me a really long time to realize I didn't want kids. And then I realized I wanted kids for all the wrong reasons. Just like Kyle kind of said, kind of like the societal pressures. Like I felt like I should have a kid. I was, athlete growing up, wanted to coach my kids in the sports that I played, all of that kind of stuff. And it wasn't really until I got a little bit older, or much older, I should say, that I was really like, it sounds bad to say, but like I'm selfish with my time. I'm selfish with my money. I'm selfish with a lot of things. And like, I have no reason, like no desire to commit time to things that I don't want to commit time to. And having a child for me would always feel like I couldn't make the choices that I wanted to make. I would have to like literally 100% change my life for a kid. And I'm just not willing to do that. Jess, I know you have some similar but kind of different reasons as to why you don't want
When did
kids.
you guys decide? When was that discussed between the two of you? I don't think we talked about that.
It was probably like 2 or
It's like
3
right
years
now,
into us
we actually
dating.
had this conversation.
I actually feel like I've probably always not wanted kids, and I feel like he was the one that came around to that actually.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like you were the one who you had your reasons for wanting kids, and I was like, well, if you want kids, this is not ever going to work out long term. So, but we wrote it out. Here we are. But I feel like I always knew I didn't want kids. But
Yeah.
my reasons are probably more rooted in like two things. One is definitely money. I feel like I've always been like, it's having kids costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And when you grow up and you don't have a lot of money and you like as a kid miss out on a lot of things, you don't want to have to like do the same thing to your kids.
Right.
And also just like the society we live in right now, like we spend a lot of money on like college loans, like the world that we live in right now, the money is even like harder. So like I couldn't even imagine like having a kid and having to like all the expenses of that. Just I'm selfish in that way.
We're always like, man, how are we? I mean, we're doing fine, but it's like, how are people doing this?
Mhm. Yeah.
But also
With-
have 3 or 4
Yeah.
kids.
And often making even less than we probably make.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like I can barely.
We have that conversation all the time because like in our neighborhood, I haven't seen obviously the insides of other houses in your neighborhood here, but like our neighborhood is basically like 1,000 copies of the same house. And we see people coming out of the houses with like 3, 4, 5 kids
We know
sometimes. And
for
we're
a
like,
fact
where are
that
you?
A house like a few doors down has 5 kids. Like, I know for a fact they have 5 kids, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, there's a lot to unpack here, but specifically, how are you supporting
Yeah.
5 children?
First off, like, there's 7 people living in that house that I know has 1 bathroom, because every house in our neighborhood mostly has 1 bathroom. There's 3 bedrooms max. Like, where are you putting these kids?
Doubling kids up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how are you affording to feed them?
Yeah.
And
That's the
support them in
crazy
every way. Like, as they get older, they'll have things that they want and need, and like, you know, like supporting their hobbies and stuff like that. The other reason for me, though, like that was my main reason is money, but my second reason is honestly just that being pregnant is my biggest fear. I don't think I have a fear bigger than the thought of being pregnant. It's my biggest fear in the world.
Yeah.
And even still to this day, like people talk about how, like, I saw a girl post on Facebook yesterday, like 1.5 years after giving birth, and her hair is effed up. She's like, I can't grow my hair anymore. My hair is so damaged. Blah, 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 blah. Hormones will fuck you up. I'm like, no, I can never.
How every experience for a woman's body is so different, right? Like, some people are like completely great, like everything works out completely fine, no problems, and then some people get so, and it's not just physical, right? Like, it's the mental aspect of the hormone change. Like, I wouldn't want to do that, right? Like, and I wouldn't expect her to do that on my behalf, even if I did want children. Like, I'd be like, no, if you don't want to do that, I would hope that people would understand that for their spouse or whatever, you know, that it's like, why would you want to intentionally put yourself through a situation where you can't recover from it potentially? You are stuck that way for life. And I don't think necessarily my mom is. I don't think my mom's was all postpartum, but my mom had some severe postpartum too. And I'm like, I would never want someone to have to go through that just so that they can reproduce, and especially if they were like on the edge, right? Like, maybe I want, maybe I don't. Like, no, you should. Then you shouldn't, right? Like, don't do something that you're not A, 100% committed to, but B, that if you're that concerned about it.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about it with like things as simple as tattoos. Like, if you don't like, if you're on the fence of a tattoo, like that's a permanent life decision, is getting something needled into your skin, but that's nowhere near as life-changing or as impactful to what your lifestyle is going to be like as having a child. So if you're not willing to draw something on your skin with 100% certainty, you should not be having kids without 100% certainty.
I laugh really hard about this because Jake has gotten some very, very random tattoos recently that I think are so hilarious. And it's like,
they are.
He's just like, fuck it.
Pretty much.
But if you're 100% confident in your fuck it mentality.
But also the good thing about that, right, is like this goes back into like, no kidding, like you can wrap this back into the same mentality where like as an adult that doesn't have children, I could make on the whim split-second decisions to do things that I want to do because I don't have to take care of another fucking human, right? Like I can get hammered and have someone come over with a tattoo gun and start fucking zapping me with tattoos because I don't have to worry about kids.
Right.
Like have people over when I want to have drinks because I don't have to worry about kids. I can go to friends' houses because I don't have to worry about babysitters. Like,
honestly, one of the main things for me comes down to I really like to walk around our house without pants on. And I'm like, wow, if I had kids, that's just not something you can socially acceptable to.
Yeah.
You have just children.
You have kids, their friends come over, you just
like,
walk out.
Oh, that's like a huge life change for me.
I think that's the funniest thing about it, right? Is like, I think some people truly want kids because that's just what they've seen, right? Like you've seen your parents, and then they think about it, and like you see parents that get onto social media in ways like I don't see this as much, but Carly will show me some of the stuff where it's like they're so depressed, right? They're like, I don't like my children at all. Like they don't like their kids' personalities, or they're like, I hate being home all the time. I feel like I can't get out of the house.
Right.
And especially if it's like a stay-at-home mom that has like a working husband or vice versa, whatever. Like you don't need to assign the role there, but it's like you are stuck in an inescapable situation that is not always good, right? Especially if you have a kid that either is misbehaved or has a disability of some sort or whatever, and then you spend everything that you had that was free time is now dedicated to whatever that situation is. And like you talk about selfishness from like a money standpoint, but for me it's more of the time. Like,
right.
Could I afford kids? Probably not. Like I would freak out about the cost, but at the same time, like I want to be able to do this, right? Like I want to be able to sit and drink on a Thursday night because I feel like it.
Right.
And know that I'm going to be fine, and like I'm not going to get hammered and not be able to go to work, obviously. But I also don't have a kid that I have to watch out for. I'm not like sitting here with a baby in my freaking lap trying to drink and do a podcast, or making her take care of kids while I do it. You know, so it is almost 100% the time for me is the biggest factor. Where like like I'm in school right now and I can't imagine like the people that are single parents or like even like a married couple that have kids that are trying to work full time and go to school, which is a lot of people that I'm in school with. They're like, yeah, I just had a baby and I'm doing this, or I just got married. You know, it's
Right.
like, how can you possibly allocate time like that? I just don't understand.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I can see the benefit of having kids, right? Like I understand, like I get how I could like being a parent, but it's just one of those situations where none of the positives that I could see outweigh even like the lightest of negatives. Like to me, like it's, you know, looking at it from like an investment mindset, like none of the ROI on having a kid is worth the investment to me.
But see, that's also part of it, though, is I feel like a lot of parents do have that mindset of like, what is my return on investment? And it's like that's just a horrible way for a kid to grow up too.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that's part of it. Like if you're gonna have a kid, you have to be like fully dedicated to like their emotional and mental well-being, and physical well-being, of course, too. But like a lot of parents get into it for the wrong reasons, and now their kids are paying the price of not being like fully appreciated and loved.
Yeah.
And, like they see right through that type of mindset.
Like Kyle and I we've been watching the league this week as we've been playing video games, and like there's the episode where they like talk about the anchor baby, where like one of the characters is worried that his wife's gonna leave him, so he's like, I'll just get her pregnant. She can't leave then. Like
Yeah.
that's a real thing. Like
Mhm.
that very much happens in everyday life. People who have kids just for additional tax breaks. Like these are
I think there
things
are
that
a lot of
happen.
those. And I think there are a lot of people like Jess was just saying where they're like, I'm going to have kids because I want someone to take care of me.
Yeah, that too.
Or
They're
like
lonely,
I'm going to
or-
have kids because I don't want to be lonely, right?
Mhm.
And so like if you're doing it for the eyes, like the I want this for me, then you're probably wrong. You know?
It's selfish. It goes back to the same, like
Yeah.
it's all rooted in this like selfishness. Like if you're gonna have a kid, it has to be fully selfless. Like
And I'm sure there's some
fully
parents out there too
selfless.
that go in with like that type of a mentality where like I'm doing this because I don't want to be lonely, but they're still good parents. So I'm not like trying
Yeah.
to like guard everybody and say that you're terrible if you have that mentality, but at the same time, like if that is the sole purpose and you're like a passive parent, just so that which this I can say with 100% certainty that this absolutely exists, where people will have kids like thinking like this is a like Jake was saying a return on investment that I'm going to get down the road where I don't have to go to a senior home because my kid's going to take care of me, but I'm not going to spend like any time with the kids in the meantime.
Yeah.
It's just something I call back on 20, 30, 40 years later or whatever, you know. It's
Like you owe me.
Yeah, I
No,
brought
don't,
you I brought
actually.
you into this
just
world. Where
happened to bring me into the world.
I brought you into this world. Well, as a matter of fact, I didn't have a say in that. So
yeah. And we don't have this topic to say like screw parents, like parenting is a bad decision. This discussion is to say like there's a flip side of the coin that makes sense for other people. And I think, you know, part of the reason that you want to have a discussion like this is if you tell somebody that you don't want kids, their reaction is almost always, oh, you're going to change your mind.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to do this later. And I want people to understand that is not what you should be saying to people, because there is a legitimate reason to not want that. Like even, so say you have health problems, right? Like there is like I am concerned about my own physical health. Like I could die in childbirth, right? Like, and then you start saying, oh, you're going to change your mind. It's like, no, I might fucking die, you asshole. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or
like
and there's
maternal
this-
mortality is at like some of the highest numbers it's been in the modern health era. Like it's
Right.
arguably worse for mothers to have children than it's been in any history that most of us can remember.
And there's even like something as simple as genetics, right? Like if you recognize like I have major depression, not me personally, but like say you're a person that knows that, and you go and have kids, right? Or like, you know, you have the gene for autism or something like that, right? And like you still want to have those kids, knowing like there's a pretty dang good chance you're going to produce a child with autism. You are making a choice to do that and pass those genes on. And I think you have to have that thought process too, where you're like, I don't think that I want to give this to a kid. Like this is a burden that I suffer from, like depression, and I don't want to pass that on to somebody else. That should be part of your
Right.
decision making, right? And there's parents out there that just don't even think about it. They're just like, oh, I have to have kids because I'm going to have kids, right? Like no matter what happens. And then like we know families that have had like a kid with disabilities, they had a strong disability gene, and then they go and have another kid. And then they also have disabilities. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with people with disabilities and they can still be good parents and all those things. But are you even thinking about that from a
Right.
genetic standpoint before you decide to have kids, other than just
Yeah.
the reason that I should have kids? And so if you know it and you have the risk and you're like, yes, I love this kid no matter what, and I'll take care of them, then good for you. I'm like really happy for you, and that's awesome. But that is not something that you talk about selfishness again. Like I am not willing to spend the rest of my life taking care of any situation that I knowingly passed on just to have a kid. Right? Like
Right.
I had a kid with autism. I would love that kid, no doubt, but I would not. That is a different level of commitment and time that you have to put into that situation than you would with a kid that doesn't have that same situation, right? And so, and it's financially right too. Like you're spending more money on doctors and all these other things, and it is a complicated situation to get into, and it's so difficult that like people just were like, I don't even care what my genealogy is. I'm going to go have kids. And I'm like, bro, like you should probably think about that, right? Like have a test done, like understand what the genes are. Like I know based on my family's background that there are certain things that I would be afraid that my kids would get past, you know? So other things that people need to think about in the same conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, like you can still be a super loving family, but like there's always the concern like that you're passing something on like that. Like like now that we have better testing for it, like people who discover that they have the gene for that like makes them extremely susceptible to breast cancer or ovarian cancer. And it's like, you know, obviously the testing was different. They may not have known that they were able to like that their mother had that gene or their mother's mother had that gene or whatever it may be. But then you hear these stories of like 4 generations of women who have to have mastectomies to make sure that they don't develop breast cancer. It's like, these are things that like we're taking into consideration by saying we're not having kids that just a lot of people don't. And like we've said, Kyle's already stated, like, we're not knocking you if you want to have kids. I have nothing against anybody who wants to have a child. I love kids. I love, like, if you want to have kids, I'm never going to be like upset at you for wanting to have a kid. But these are all things that like, even if you do want kids, you need to be considering. You need to understand the time commitment that goes into it. Cause even like I grew up with 2 parents who were there. My dad and mom both worked for a good part of my childhood. And then my mom stayed home. My dad always made really good money. Like we never had a lot of the burdens that a lot of other families had. But even then, like we had other burdens that we had to deal with. Like, even though my dad was around and my dad was, you know, making good money, he was working long hours. He was constantly traveling. So like from age 5 to 13, I didn't really see my dad like comparatively that much. And then on the flip side, there's people who, you know, they don't make as much money, but the dad's home all the time. But then the dad is also stressing. Like there's so many different situations that go into wanting or not wanting to have kids. And I think too many people just assume that like, oh, you're going to grow, like you said, you're going to grow up and change your mind. In reality, it's the opposite for me. I grew up and that's when I realized I didn't want kids.
And honestly, it's just like, just for the record, like saying that to somebody is like none of your fucking business is what it comes down to too. Right? Like if you ask somebody if they want kids and they're like, no, then it's like, oh, cool. Like, and if you want to have that conversation, like, oh, how did you make that decision? Like, sure, I will talk to you about that. But if you go, you're going to change your mind, like you're going to have kids, then I'm going to get a little bit more aggressive with you because I'm so fucking sick of hearing that at this point where it's like, you don't understand that not everybody wants that. And you're assuming that is just irritating at this point. And you need to understand for most people that is not, like if you talk to somebody and they say that, your response shouldn't be to convince them to have kids, which I've had that happen too. They're like, oh, well, you should have kids because of this. And it's like, no, I don't want you to convince me to have kids. You asked me a question and I gave you an honest answer. Like, if you want to know why, I will happily tell you that there's a lot of reasons behind that. Like my selfishness with time and money and understanding all these things. And like, I'm not worried about having a kid to carry on my legacy or a kid to take care of me. Right. Like I'll have enough money to put me in the freaking senior home. Right. Like, or whatever. Like that's the point. It's like, I'm prioritizing the things that we need to retire. Right. Like I'm taking care of that financially and things like that. So that, and kids are helping me make those decisions for us. As opposed to trying to take care of a kid, set them up for success in the hopes that they will take care of you and things like that. So I just think it's important, like I said, to have these discussions openly because people don't realize it when they say those things, that it can be frustrating and you never know too. You're like, what if somebody can't have kids, right? And you're like, oh, you're not going to have kids? Oh, well, why not? And it's like, okay, do you really want me to tell you that I'm like medically unable to do that? We can get into that right now. It's like, no, it's none of your fucking business. Like if somebody tells you that, or like, don't even ask. You know what I mean? Like at family gatherings, like, when's the baby coming? It's like, oh, I just had a miscarriage last week. Now you're a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's
the worst part is in a situation like that, the other people will look at the person who just had to say that out loud that they had a miscarriage, like they're the asshole and they just ruined like the conversation of the day. Like, you're trauma dumping. Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm just, you
You-
asked the
you got
question,
that.
I answered it. Like,
I think people are just a little bit too invasive about this, and they don't realize the sensitive nature or just the honest nature of people that like don't want to have kids. And I would be curious, like now, especially with like Gen Z being older, of like what the actual thought process is of their generation and not having kids. Because I would imagine more of them don't want kids, to be honest with you.
yeah, I would agree.
I'm kind of curious if that is shaping some of those conversations at different levels now, to the point where like maybe we'll start to see a shift away from the you're definitely going to have this nuclear family with your white picket fence and 5 kids. It's like, no, I'm good. I'm
Yeah,
so
I'm all
sorry.
right.
I don't want that at all.
See, I'm at least in a decent enough situation where like when I like openly talk to my parents about the fact that I don't want kids. I'm like, if you want a grandkid, it's not coming from me. Like,
Yeah, I told my mom I was getting a vasectomy, and she was like, no. And I was like, yes,
Yeah.
I am. And she's like, are you really? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, that's so sad. I was like, no, it's not.
nope, it's great. It's fucking great.
It's sad
I'm
for
excited.
you because that's what you want. That's not what I want, right? Like, I remember my dad one time was like, so which one of my kids is going to give me grandkids? And all of us were like, not me. My oldest brother did eventually, I think, change his mind. Now he wants kids, but like, yep, as far as I know, my middle brother and I, we don't, right? And so
Right.
it's like, you're not getting them from me. So I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I don't give a shit what you want. This isn't about you, you know?
I think we've been really fortunate in that both of our families are like super cool about it. They're just like,
Yeah.
well, whatever makes you guys happy. Like if you want them,
Yeah.
cool. If you
Well,
don't, cool.
I think that's
that helps a
one.
lot.
That's one benefit that I can give to our families that not everybody's family gives is like
We
your,
don't get any pressure like, oh, when are we gonna have no, that
That-
will never happen.
but also like my family went through struggles with, you know, my parents raising 3 kids. Your family had 6 kids in it, and like your family knows all the struggles that go into raising kids. So it's like we grew up in environments where like we weren't forced into really feeling like we had to have kids, and they understand the reasons why we don't want to.
and they're perfectly fine
Yeah.
having grand dogs.
Yeah, like the dogs and the cats, that's enough for them. That's all they need.
You know what I think is
So-
really interesting, that not one of us has said we just don't like kids. Like,
And
I
so I
actually
think-
really like children.
Yeah.
Not one of us has been like, you know what? I hate kids. I don't know if you guys hate kids.
This is
You
a
know,
good way to go, right? That's a good thing to talk about too, right? Like, I actually had a long conversation with a guy. I had a few drinks, and I think the problem with the way that I talk about this, right, and like this is a me problem, is I think I come off a little bit more aggressive and like I just don't want this for me, to the point where like I think some people are like put off, like, oh, you like hate people that have kids, and it's like that's not true. I might sound like that sometimes. That is not what I mean. But the problem is, right, like I get disappointed sometimes when my friends have kids. I'm happy for them, but I'm disappointed because I know that there is a priority change in the way that your life is now going to be handled.
Right.
Like one of our friends right now is about to have a baby, and I know I'm probably going to see him. I already see him very little, and it's probably going to go to nearly nothing now because your priorities in life change. And so that's another thing that I just don't want. Like I want to keep my priorities consistent. And that's why like it's like you have like a mini funeral for once you hit 30 freaking years old and all your friends are settling down into these child with children lifestyles, and it's like, I know that you're going to have a hard time getting a babysitter. You're going to have a hard time finding the time to do things that aren't with your kids. And no offense, but as a married dude with no kids, I don't want to go to your children's birthday parties either. Like I will.
Yeah, no.
to
and
show
we'll
support.
even invite you. Like we had that at work. A bunch of the families with kids. One of the girls invited everybody that has kids to her kid's birthday party, and nobody else got invited. And it was like a big deal. Somebody was like, "She only invited the people that have kids." I'm like,
Yeah.
if I was invited, I wouldn't have gone.
I've got through playing softball, I've got invited to a bunch of my teammates' kids' birthday party. I'm like, no offense, I'd love to come over to your house and drink beer with you, but I don't want there to be 20 kids running around while I'm doing it. Then I just feel weird.
It has nothing to do with hating kids is the point, right? Like I have a good time like interacting with people's kids. Like I don't hate kids; they're fine. Like if any of my friends' kids that I've ever been around, like we're fine, right? Like you know what I mean? It's not like it's a burden in any really way, other than sometimes kids are really annoying. But I think I don't necessarily come across that way perfectly when I try to have these discussions where it seems like I am like genuinely like, don't come near me if you have kids. That is not the truth either. It's just like I said, I understand what is going to happen to your life and the impact that that will have on our friendship
Right.
or our relationship, and that sucks too a lot of the time. So,
Well,
What do
I
you got?
know, Carly, I know you have a list of reasons you don't want kids. And I think we all kind of internally have that list too of like, there's very legitimate things about kids that I do hate. Like, I hate when kids are too young and they can't communicate with me and their communication styles are screaming, crying, throwing shit. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with the crying baby on the plane. Like, I understand sometimes you have no choice. You have to fly with your baby and that kid's going to cry. And I understand that, but I can still not like it. And then
Oh,
I
yeah.
see I've met hundreds, if not thousands of kids that are absolutely great, but it's always the shitheads that are the ones that stick out in my memory as the ones that are like, you're one of the main reasons that I would never like, I don't
Yeah.
want to have you like one of you because it could be like you.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, right? It's a total roll of the dice. You could have the perfect gene pool and have a horrible child, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I feel
You
like
could
we
have the
should
next Jeffrey
Carly
Dahmer.
read her list out loud. She has a whole list.
She does have a list.
Um,
There's some good ones in there.
so the list actually came from when Kyle and I started being more public with not wanting to have kids.
Yeah.
We were at a get together. I think we were all playing games around a table,
Yep.
and it just randomly got brought up. Kyle's like, "No, we don't want to have kids," and this other woman that was at the party decided to kind of point her finger down at us and tell us that we were selfish pieces of shit. And I was just absolutely stunned.
But she said that in those like exact words, or like
It
obviously
was
she was
a
throwing
very
it out the
aggressive
list.
tone.
Very, very aggressive. She was standing
Wow.
above us, pointing
She
down
literally
at us.
stood up at the table and was like, not yelling, but like raising her voice with us about how like we were being selfish and we were like all of these different things that like we were failing to like reproduce in society and like
Mhm.
Guess
Weird
what?
shit.
Society's doing fine. We got too many people. That's why diseases happen.
it was a very, very uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
that's really unfortunate. I feel like
Yeah.
everybody should leave it as like the individual choice for your home and your family and what you want.
That was the big thing, right? Is like it got to the point where she was like, "Well, then what are you doing for birth control?" And like started asking like medical questions to us, and I was like, "Bitch,
Again, that's our
this is
private
not your
business.
fucking business."
Yeah.
Like, you crossed the line immediately, and now you have dove off the deep end. Like you need to back the fuck off, right? And so like, but again, this is like part of the reason why I want to have these conversations, right? So like people realize that is not the right way to handle this. But Carly does have that was like kind of the genesis of like, well, why don't we want to do
Carly's
this?
like, yeah, let me pull up my list, actually.
Well, so yeah, that's what started that. I was like, I'm just going to start listing everything that I come across in my life where I'm like, that's why I don't want to have kids. But I would say what has really been getting to me lately is we both work full-time jobs, both Kyle and I, and we're both working at least 40 hours a week. You sometimes more.
Yeah.
I have to come straight home, start cooking for the two of us. Then I have to make sure the house gets clean and our cats get taken care of. And
Yeah, because I'm coming home and rolling right into school right now.
he's going
Well,
right into school. But even then, like we come home and we just either we want to relax,
yeah,
or I want to get like my nightly chores done, and then I want to relax. But it's
And God forbid you have like self-care. Like I feel like
Yeah.
that's something that generations before us like didn't prioritize, and now I feel like we
Yeah.
prioritize that a lot more. Like we need that
Yeah.
unwind
And
time.
I think both of us really like getting 8 hours of sleep. And
yeah. I just want to be
Yeah.
like,
Most people should. That should be a normal thing.
Yeah.
or like
Everybody
you
should
want to
want
sleep in on the
that.
weekend. You know? I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. on Saturday. You know.
but it's like I come home, I cook dinner. By the time I'm done cooking dinner, it's dark outside. And I'm like, how can I add a child to this mix?
Yeah.
Or multiple children. And like, I don't even want to bathe myself some days. Why do I want to
Right.
bathe humans?
Yeah.
And like getting ready in the morning, you have to wake up at a certain time to get yourself out the door. Well, you might want to add an hour to that if you've got to get more humans ready and out
Yep.
the door, or getting them to daycare on time. I don't know. Just like, I feel like I don't have enough time in this world for myself and for you.
Right.
And our-
Yeah,
And
totally
so
agree.
I can't imagine adding somebody to that mix.
Yeah. Completely.
No,
But-
even like, go ahead. I'll
No,
get to my point
I was
later.
going to read from the list, so I'd like to hear what you have to say.
I was just gonna say, like, somebody like me who suffers from like anxiety, like I have enough anxiety about myself. Like you're saying, like adding another person or multiple other people, like it's hard enough worrying about me, Jess, and my friends and like current family. And
Yeah.
then like Kyle said, your priorities shift. So like once you have a kid, like kid is where 90% of your worry goes. And then so like I'm either neglecting myself to care for the kid, but then also all of my anxiety that I have for myself is going to manifest within my child as well. So like when I'm worried about like my health, like I'm going to start worrying about the kids' health. Like what are they going to do? What are they getting into? What could they get into if I'm not around them? What's going on at daycare? What is the babysitter doing? What's the nanny doing? They're at preschool, they're in kindergarten, they're in middle school, they're in high school. Like I know I was a shithead during all those ages. My kid's probably going to be worse. Like just my anxiety would be so, I would literally be in like a state of panic 24/7 if I tried to have a child.
Well, we were talking earlier about like Kyle's buddy who had like issues with like the people on Rover taking care of their dogs. I'm like, I don't think I could trust anybody with a child of mine. But like, school, don't trust you guys. Daycare, don't trust you guys. I'm like, well, I'm quitting everything. I gotta stay home with my kid all the time.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why I grew up in Iowa is because my parents didn't have anybody when my oldest brother was born in Texas, and they immediately moved back to Iowa so they could have someone that they trusted to take care of their kid. You know, like they needed it too financially, right? Like because they couldn't fucking afford to have kids, and they had one anyway. So shocker. But then they moved back, and like they needed that somebody that was stable. So like I spent a lot of time with my grandparents because my parents both worked full time, right? Like and I don't know that that's what they wanted, but that's what they ended up with because they were working adults and they needed to have a child in the next year, you know. So
it's the same for me. When I was born, my parents technically lived in Minnesota, or not Minnesota, Wisconsin, like just over the Illinois border. And they moved to my mom's hometown simply because both of my mom's parents were retired and they could take care of me, or they could get me to, or her grandma lived there. So it was literally like, it's the same exact thing. Like when I was born, my parents moved to accommodate me being like having somebody to take care of me. And it's like, I don't want to uproot my life for me right now.
Yeah.
Like, let alone like if my family lived in fucking North Dakota, I don't want to have to move to North Dakota because they're the only people that I trust to take care of my kid.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm dying to hear Carly's list though.
We can go through some of this, and then I have another thing that we're going to talk about that's on the fun side. So we'll go through this, and then we'll
swap topics.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of skim through, and I'll just say some of the fun ones. Number 111, the 111th reason to not have a child. It literally just says rectovaginal fistula.
What does that mean?
So that's something that would probably happen when you're pregnant or when you give birth, and I just added it to the list. Let's see.
I was like, is she going to define it for us?
Number 119 is your feet and your hands get bigger, and then number 120 is your fucking nose gets bigger with a bunch of question marks. I don't want to have to help with math homework. I'm not good at math.
Oh, I love number 127.
Your Spotify rap will be fucked by kids songs.
Oh my, it's so true. Baby shark do 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 do.
Or what's her name? JoJo Siwa.
Oh God.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Also just worrying about like sicknesses, like worrying about children getting sick. I have a severe fear of vomit, of children vomiting, of people vomiting, of myself vomiting. Like I know for a fact I should not have kids because when somebody throws up, I run out of the house. Like I can't do it. So not for me. Shouldn't do that. Which I also don't know why I became a nurse. Don't ask.
That was my next question, but I want to ask it.
Picky
eaters. I already have to deal with Kyle, so don't want to do that any further. What'd you say?
136 is pretty good.
I never want to have the urge to tweet big girl potty.
That's
based on a tweet that I saw in my feed, and I was just like, girl.
The best thing in life right now is that somebody took a shit on a toilet, you know?
Oh my God.
Big girl potty.
I couldn't imagine that being the highlight of my day.
Okay, so this one. So I'll take things like the same people that are like that shame us for not wanting to have children are always the same people that bitch about being parents.
Yeah.
And they will just constantly post things about how much they hate being a parent. And so I'll take what they say and I'll add it to my list. And I'll be like, okay, like you're giving me content here. A mom said, you know that feeling when you have a 6 a.m. flight, so you set your alarm for 4 a.m. It's dark out, your eyes are heavy, you have a pit in your stomach kind of feeling. Okay, so having a kid is that every single morning.
Yeah, I'm
No.
out. Sign
I'm good.
pass.
I will not sign up for that. You can go into septic shock after a C-section and lose all of your limbs.
Yeah, not worth the risk.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Number 146, it's hard enough meal planning and having dinners ready for Kyle and I. I don't want to add more people to that list. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in charge
Yeah.
of doing all the meal planning and I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
But she knows I won't do it.
I was gonna say, Kyle, come on, we need your meal
Just
planning.
eat.
Step up.
And it's nice because we can just be like, let's have a fend for yourself night.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
can't do
we
that.
do that. Yeah, we do that all the time where it's just like, what are we having for dinner?
Cereal.
I'm just gonna have chicken.
I usually eat leftovers and you eat cereal.
Number 150 is pretty good. I saw a TikTok of a mom telling her son that he couldn't fart on ice cubes and put them back in the freezer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all that gross shit the kids do.
So yeah, I have, what is this list at? It's at 167 reasons right now. It's pretty long. I won't go into it any further, but maybe we could do that another day.
I'm kind
The
of
whole
curious what
episode
was
is
like
free.
number one. Like when you started the list, what was like the first
let's
one?
see.
What was it?
Children puke.
Children.
Okay.
Yep, that
Back to
checks.
puke.
That checks.
Yeah.
You're like, this has to be number one.
And it's on there multiple times. Like
Yeah, 15 is
number
children
15 is also children puke.
It's a fair one to relist.
Yeah.
I don't want
like
to.
sleeping in on the weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even though I still can't sleep past like 7:30, I love that. I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. with a kid.
yeah.
Right. So the long story short is we're both child-free by choice. It is by choice, so don't feel like you have the need to imprint your child having needs onto our lives or any of your other friends that are child-free by choice. But feel free to ask. I'll talk to you about why I don't want kids. I will respectfully have that conversation, but don't treat people silly just because they say they don't want to have kids. And then also recognize that some people just can't, and it's rude for you to fucking have those conversations. On that note, I'm going to change topics. We're going to go lighter, and I'm also going to switch to my second beer, which is Brewery how did you say that?
Omegang?
Brewery Omegang. It's called All Hallows Treat. It's an imperial chocolate peanut butter stout, which sounds delicious. It's 7.6%, so that'll be fun. And they have zombies on here, and it says grains. So naturally, It's going to be delicious.
What would you rate your first beer?
2.75.
Mine gross me out because it's got these weird like floaties in there that almost feel like beer mold to me.
Oh yeah,
And it didn't really taste good, so I'm a little sketched out now.
You didn't like that. I actually like that beer.
It was fine. It was like before these thingies gross me out. It was probably like a 2.5. Now I'm
I
gonna
think
give
it's
it like
just like full.
it might be, but it's I don't know. It was I'll be generous and give it a 2.25, but that's generous. I'm switching to High Water Brewing's Sugary Maple Pecan Pie Specialty Ale.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And
Just
it tells
like-
me to fill my pie hole, and it is 9.8%.
Fill your pie hole.
I like
It's
that.
intense, isn't it? Yeah.
Carly is not a fan.
It has a very, very strong peanut butter taste, but it tastes kind of like a porter instead of a
The
stout.
peanut butter is the best part of
Is
it.
it there?
That's pretty good.
Which I was just educated recently that porters and stouts are the same thing. That being said, I still will stand on the fact that I think they're very different.
No, that's a no for me.
Yeah, they're very different. They're not the same. But I get what that guy was saying, but they're
Yeah.
not the same.
Uncle Kyle has been in the chat. If you're not paying attention to the comments, I can't add them because I'm not on my normal account. But he said too many parents' entire personalities. Oh, everyone needs kids. That's totally true.
That's
Mhm.
a lot of that I feel like comes from the people's perspective of like, oh, I dealt with some shit, so you have to deal with it too, or you don't know like what it's like, so you can't
Or
talk.
It's the people that are saying that kind of shit on social media and then going home and hating their lives.
Yeah,
And then Uncle Kyle also said, "Shit, I'm one and done. Fuck them kids," which is hilarious.
true. He's got a kid, and he's like, "Fuck them
One and
kids."
done.
One kid, done. That's it.
FDK.
Okay, so Jake, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna go to the next topic. I introduced the first one, but I'm also taking this one, and this might take the rest of our time. If not, Jake will have to come up with something on the fly. But Carly sent me this topic as a gracious spouse that she is, and she hooks me up with ideas when she sees them on the Tink Tonks. So here is the topic, Jake, and
Yes.
Jess, and Carly. Your hand is now a beverage dispenser. For the rest of your life, you can pick 5 liquids that will dispense out. Sorry, not beverage, just liquids. Liquids in general. Like it's not as specific as drinkable liquids. 5 liquids that you want to pour out of each of your fingers for the rest of your life. So at any given time, I can say, "Ooh, I want this." Pour. It's wherever I want it. Got to pick 5.
Oh, this is good. Are we gonna go like one at a time?
Sure.
All right, my number one, beer.
What kind? Do you
Specific.
like specify?
Do I have to specify?
what kind of beer?
Then I'm just gonna go like very general, and I'm gonna be the life of every party I go to, as long as everybody likes Coors Light, because I'm gonna pour Coors Light out of my thumb till the day I die.
Coors Light until the day he dies. All right, Jess.
It's really, really bad that my first idea was literally just
Again.
water.
Does not have to be drinkable.
I feel like I need examples of like non-drinkable. Like, what would I want?
Condiments.
Returning.
Just stand by.
Yeah, you could have condiments. You could have like cleaning supplies. You could have
I gotta
So,
steal the one. from the line.
bleach.
toiletries. Yeah, I don't know.
Jess, what's yours?
I don't know why I'm like so stuck on just water. I feel like just water would be like the nicest thing to just be like, I'm thirsty, I'm dehydrated, or like want to be a hydrated
Really?
queen, you know?
When you go to like a concert, you're just
I'm
like,
going
I
with
don't
water.
water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can't go wrong.
As water. Okay, I'm stealing this from the original idea creator. My number one, gas.
yeah.
I'm never paying for gas again.
Okay.
Shoot that shit right into my vehicle.
That's technically a liquid.
Yes.
Gasoline. Did you say is it technically a liquid? Like gasoline, petroleum gas?
It's called gas.
It is definitely a liquid.
I think it's
Uh,
gas.
My number one is also water. I
Carly's doing water as well.
love water. It has to come out ice cold though. Like I have to have
Mhm.
cold water. Just I can't imagine like being in bed, waking up thirsty, and just like pouring
Yeah.
ice cold water into your mouth. Just right
Yeah.
from your
That would be pretty sick.
I'm laughing at Uncle Kyle's message just now.
Middle finger would be pissed, so I can emphasize the fuck you. That is amazing. I love that so much.
That's good.
Oh, all right. Number 2 for me. I was gonna do gasoline as my next one, but I'll come up with something different for that. Honestly, this is hard.
You just did one so far. I think there's.
I know. That's why it's hard.
5 Diddies.
I'm just gonna stick with gasoline, because that would be like the most no-brainer one, besides like beer. I never have to pay for alcohol again. I never have to pay for gas again.
Yeah.
Like I'm really chilling after those two, and then it's just pure convenience options from there. So my number 2 would be gas.
Yep. Jess?
Jessica.
I should probably say gas since you guys are being so logical about that, but I'm gonna say coffee. But like
Yeah.
hot
Ooh.
coffee, like
Yeah.
breakfast blend, hot breakfast blend.
You have a
ready to
brand?
go,
Does
like,
it have to
wake
be a
up and
specific brand?
I mean, Papa Nichols is my favorite breakfast blend.
Papa Nichols breakfast blend coffee on the digit for the rest of your life. Okay.
Aren't
Yeah.
you guys having a hard time finding that?
Yes.
Yes, recently. I don't want to talk about it.
It's a sore subject.
Okay, I've got gasoline, and then I brought this on topic, and now I have to ask a clarifying question and see if this is tolerable. Is it okay if it's something that's like chilled? Like, can I say a chilled thing? Like you said, cold water. Like, is
Carly
it
said
okay if-
cold water, yeah. So I think that's only fair.
Yeah. My Coors Light is ice cold.
Can I do the blue icy?
Oh, like a slushy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want a blue icy
I would-
branded out of my finger for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Because I mean, you wouldn't want any of your liquids except for maybe gasoline to be
Not.
98.6
Yeah.
degrees.
Can we just
Yeah.
talk about how awkward this would be though if like had to come out of a certain finger and you like woke up in the middle of the night trying to drink your cold water finger and you drank your gasoline finger?
Whoops.
I'm going blue raspberry icy. Final answer number 2.
Nice.
Okay.
Good one.
My number 2 is Diet Coke.
Yeah, let's go on.
Diet Coke.
My number 3 is going to be the greatest diet soda of all time that I seemingly can never find anymore. And it's Diet Cream Soda.
Mm.
Love it.
Charlie seems
Absolute
thrilled.
goat. That's number 3. That one's coming out of the middle finger.
Okay. My number 3 is definitely Sprite. So
It's a good one.
I think I'm gonna follow in Jess's footsteps and go number 3 for me would also be coffee. Big coffee person, but mine would not be Papa Nichols breakfast blend.
Costco.
what?
Coffee.
Mine would be Costco's off-brand Starbucks house blend coffee. I love it so much. It's delicious. It's
So
the
good.
It is
greatest
good.
coffee.
Is that what I've been drinking every morning? Because it's good.
I love it. It is my
It's
favorite.
it flat out is good coffee.
It's delish.
So that is my number trace.
I did not know that they made Pib Zero. Do they not make that in California? Because
I don't know.
I've never. I don't think I've even seen.
I don't think I've seen Pib Zero.
I haven't.
either.
Yeah,
Where are you getting this?
he lives in Iowa, so must be an Iowa thing.
Okay, my middle finger is going to be Ariana Grande Cloud Perfume because I love smelling good.
Oh, perfume. That's such a good
That's
idea.
that
is a good one. That's a good one.
If I could just always have, like, I'm going in somewhere, I'm gonna smell good.
Yeah, that's smart. Well done.
That's a good one. I'm gonna stick with the consumable. My ring finger is going to be the White Monster Ultra Zero.
Yeah.
That's my caffeinated beverage for the day
Sure.
instead of coffee. I'll
Yeah,
stick.
yeah.
I could drink that every day. So
Jess, back to you.
So I was trying to narrow it down in specifications, and I don't know if I will. So I was just gonna say just a nice red wine. I was trying to like narrow it down more specifically for you.
At
It'd
least
be-
do a specific
can't.
variety of red.
it'd be Vin Volute from Cooper's Hawk.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Vin Volute from Cooper's Hawk is really good.
What kind of
And
red is it?
sounding.
Let me Google it
I
real
don't
quick
even
and
know. I
see
just
if
know it's delicious. I bought a whole case of it. I've never done that before. I tried it and I was like,
Yeah.
I need this. So we have a whole case of it. We pull it out on like special occasions.
While you're figuring that out, I can go to my number 4, which I think I'm gonna go with 4 is tough. I think I'm gonna have to do a booze though, and I think I would go with Templeton Rye Single Barrel Whiskey out of my number 4.
If you just had booze at your finger every day, it'd be dangerous.
I mean, I have booze at my finger every day, and I don't abuse it.
But if you're just sitting here on the couch and you're like, it's right there.
Yeah, so number 4 is whiskey for me. Templeton Rye Single Barrel.
according to everything I can find, it's just a red blend.
Fruit
Okay.
forward.
Doesn't
yet
really
balanced.
specify.
Jam jar and berry flavors. Silky.
Faux?
My number 4, I made a list. So mine's either sugar-free root beer or coffee, but I think I would choose sugar-free root beer.
It should be 4, right?
This is number 4.
Yeah, okay. I thought you said 5 for a second. Yeah. Sugar free root beer.
I have a root beer every day, but I don't necessarily need to have a coffee every day.
Okay.
Makes sense. Oh, the last one.
Important one.
I don't know if I want to go like pure enjoyment or pure convenience, and that's where I'm struggling a little bit here.
Give us your ideas.
So like pure convenience, I almost want like some kind of cooking oil, just because like I never have to reach for the bottle. Like every time if I'm ever going anywhere, I never have to worry about getting it. I can cook wherever I want to go. Pure enjoyment, like I like hot sauce, buffalo
Hot sauce.
sauce.
That sauce would be good.
Yeah,
Which-
if I had to specify too, it would specifically be Gindo's Hot Sauce, which is a local company to us, but they're actually available out here in California in some places. But they did a collab with a brewery out there, and the hot sauce is called Sunflower, and so it's like a pineapple habanero. It is
It's very
by far the best. It's my favorite hot sauce of all time. So if I could have that specifically, because I could eat it on anything and be extremely happy. So that'll be my number 5.
Okay.
I need that. Bring me some next time.
If it's still available, I will send you some.
Jess, number
it's my
5.
turn. I think I'm gonna just go back and piggyback off of what Carly said because I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since she said her perfume idea, and I'm gonna say don't remember what the name of it is, but it's that one Billie Eilish.
It was a Billie
that I'm
Eilish
obsessed
perfume.
with. I think it's the black one. She only has like 2, so I'm gonna go with that. I love that idea, so I'm 100% stealing from Carly.
Billie Eilish number 2.
It's so good.
Nice. Number 2.
It's literally what it's called.
I'm telling you, she only has like 1 and 2. 2 is great.
Since I'm married to her and I can take advantage of her water finger, I am not going to do water. And my final one is going to be
I would be so mad if you came to me all the time to fill up your cup.
you just put it in my mouth.
I would be mad about that too.
So
I'm stealing his gasoline to fill up my car, so it's fine.
I want to be practical about the final one as well because I've got the other ones that I care for. And I think I'm going to go with I'm having a hard time between 2 because I think there's 2 good ideas here. My initial thought was laundry detergent because I don't want to pay for it anymore. And I could just right into the washer. But then I was like, what about just an all-purpose cleaner? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that
like
way you never have to worry about paying for that anymore. And
like a Lysol.
wipe. You know what I mean?
Says the guy who never cleans the counters. Never.
Yeah, but then I could just spray it for you.
No.
That would be his contribution
He'd
to
have
cleaning.
To think about it.
I thought about shampoo too.
I think I'm going to go with that's smart.
Now you added a 3rd one for him. Way to go.
Because just think about it. Your hands are already up there. You're just
But I
pressing
wasn't
down on
thinking
your
shampoo, I would
finger.
actually probably do body wash.
Just be a true bro and do a 5-in-1.
Do like your native deodorant, but in a liquid form.
Spray deodorant. Yeah.
Yeah, because you.
I don't know if they make one, but native deodorant is very expensive, and I don't use
so
real deodorant.
expensive.
It is
So,
expensive,
I'm just
but it's
gonna
worth
pretend
it.
this and say it's a liquid. We're gonna grind it up, and I'm gonna do spray deodorant out the pinky.
Which scent of native?
He's not
Right now, I
gonna
have
get Carly,
sea
don't worry.
salt and
Cedar.
Cedar? I just finished that one, and now I'm on like whichever the orange one is.
Oh yeah, that was my number 1 forever.
Yeah,
Which is
I'm blanking on it right now.
I still have a thing of it somewhere, but
Yeah.
I like the blue one.
Sea salt and cedar's great.
Number 5.
Number 5, very easy for me. I would have the cat treat called Churu
Nice.
to come out of my
Nice.
pinky because I'm a big cat lady. I love going on evening walks and seeing all the neighborhood cats. I would have this addictive liquid cat treat that comes straight out of my pinky, and they would all love me even more. So it'd be really convenient.
All right, recap them, Jake. 1 through 5.
Oh God, what did I say? What was my number 1?
Gasoline.
Beer. Oh, Coors Light, gasoline, White Monster, Diet Cream Soda, Gindo's Sunflower Hot Sauce.
Jess?
Jess?
What am I? Water, coffee, Sprite,
Vin Volute.
Vin Volute, red wine, and perfume. Billie Eilish.
Billie Eilish number 2.
Gasoline, blue raspberry icy, off-brand Starbucks, Templeton Rye single barrel, and spray deodorant.
Water, Diet Coke, Cloud perfume, sugar-free root beer, Churu cat treat.
Yours is so spot on for the things that you need in life.
Yeah. I think we all did well, if we're being honest here.
I have everything that I need from a liquid standpoint for the most part, except for I have to bomb her water.
That makes me mad.
That makes me mad.
I already know I'm overstimulated just thinking about it.
Carly is pissed.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this here joint spouse episode of the Two Average Husbands. We hit almost exactly an hour on the head, so we don't have enough time for another topic. So thank you for joining us. This has been another episode of Two Average Husbands. You can find Jake on Twitter/X at Perry_FF. Carly probably doesn't want to shout out her social media. I don't have social media. Jess can shout out hers if she really wants to after I'm done talking. You can find number 2 ABG Husbands on X, Instagram, and you can find us spelled out Two Average Husbands on YouTube, which is the best place to watch this podcast. If you're going to do that, hit the like, subscribe, get notified, blah, 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 all the normal things people say about those types of things. And then if you want to listen to the podcast on any sort of just audio only format, we're pretty much all over the place. If you want to chat with us live, you can do that on YouTube and on Twitch. And then you can also watch live on X, but you can't chat live because their functionality is muff garbage. Other than that, I think that's all I've got. Thank you for joining us. Jake can close us out.
Kyle covered most of it. If you want to see us drink something, let us know what you want to see us drink. If you want to hear us talk about something, let us know what you want to hear us talk about. While I'm going to think about it, I'm going to rate my second beer. It basically just tastes like a kind of slightly mapley stout. I'll give it 3.25.
This one's like a perfect 3.0. It's a little too dry, but it has a lot of that peanut butter flavor. So I'll give them credit for that.
Nice. Jess, how do you rate your beer?
At 5?
Yeah.
We're gonna go with I'll just say a solid 2.5.
2.5, right in the middle of the road.
I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I'm drinking it.
Carly, how was your root beer, sugar-free root beer?
Always a 10 out of 10.
True.
We are also, speak of the devil, going to go back to a 10 scale because we're terrible at using Untapped. So we're going to ditch the 5 scale of Untapped and go back in the future to a 10-point scale and just stop dealing with that because we never use it. So
Thank God.
That's what we're going to
Anyways, this has been another episode of Two Average Husbands. We will see you all in our next episode. And as always, don't forget